Okay, in this lesson, I just want to point out where you can get the course assets and the source code from that we're going to be using in this training course. So first of all, attached to this lesson, if you take a look at the course outline, you'll see attached to this lesson there is a resources button you can click on, and that will give you access to download the course assets zip file. So once you have this and you open it up, then what you'll find inside here is a few folders. One of them is Postman. That contains the Postman collection that we'll use at various points in this course. Don't worry about using it right now. I'll demonstrate what we need to do with this as we get to the part of the course that involves it. Also, there's a bunch of snippets in here. We do write almost all the code manually, but there are some parts where it's a bit too onerous and unnecessary for us to write out the code manually. And I've supplied some snippets where necessary on this course. On a few occasions we'll use them. And inside here there's various spec files that you can take a look at. And one of them might be the architecture, for example, that I refer to on many occasions during this course that you can have locally and refer to whenever you need. Also, each of our services, I've got a spec sheet for that you can also take a look at. And just in case you want to know what I'm using inside VS Code, I've also got the VS Code config that I've used and the extensions, all of the extensions listed out here that I add at various points during this course. You don't need to install them now. I'll cover that as and when we need them. So please do have this course assets folder available and just store it on your desktop somewhere, as I'll refer to this at various points in the course. Also, what you can get access to is the source code for the course. At github.com, try-catch-learn, Carsties, the name of the app we're going to be building, and all of the source code is contained inside this repository. What I would suggest actually, because microservices, we write a fair bit of configuration, and all of those configuration files have the potential for you to make typos in. What I would really suggest to help you out on this is just grab a local copy of this by using the button here and copy this address into your clipboard, and just find a spare folder on your computer and just clone it locally into your computer. So you've got a copy of this source code that you can refer to at various points. And if I just clone this repository into this empty folder, and then we can cd into the Carsties directory, and this gives us a copy of the code we're going to be writing during this course. Now each section has a commit, and we can check the git log inside here, and we can see all of the commits that have been added at various points. This view is a bit messy, so what you might want to do if you do want to grab a local copy of the source code is just use a longer command, and we can say git log --all --decorate --one line --graph. And this gives us a cleaner view of the commit itself. And then we can grab let's say we wanted to see the code because we were in section 6 and we wanted to see the code that was being used there. We can just grab this short version of the hash and copy that into our clipboard and just say git checkout and paste in the commit. And this gives us the code as at the end of section 6. So if you do need to refer to the code, then this is a good way to do it. And we can get back to the main branch by saying git checkout and main. And now we're back to the original main branch. That command that I used to get the cleaner view of the logs is a bit long. So what we can do is we can copy this part of the command, the log decorate one line graph, and we can add an alias into our git config. We could say git config and say --global alias .adog, which is all decorate one line graph, and then just paste in what we have in our clipboard, and this configures an alias for us. So then we can just say git adog, and we get the same command and the output and a clean view of the git commits, so you can refer back to them at any point you want. So please do use the source code. Please do grab the course assets attached to this lesson and download them onto your computer. And next we'll just take a look at some VS Code tips and troubleshooting. Okay, in this lesson I just want to run through some VS Code tips and troubleshooting options if you run into issues with this tool that I'm going to use to demonstrate in all the lessons. Now, first of all, it is not a requirement for you to use Visual Studio Code to write this application. I'm expecting you to have some coding experience to participate in this course, and therefore, I expect you have a code editor or IDE preference already. And as long as that IDE is capable of compiling and running C# code, such as Visual Studio, Rider, and VS Code, of course, then you can use whatever you prefer to use. And I'm quite a big fan of VS Code. I don't use it every day, admittedly. I do use Rider because I have a subscription to that. But I do use VS Code for demonstration because it's compatible with Windows, Mac, and Linux, and it's pretty much the same experience on all of those different operating systems. But if you do use VS Code and run into problems, then please take a look at what I'm going to demonstrate here to help you resolve that problem, because it is not perfect, and I have run into several issues whilst recording the lessons in this course. So I just want to mention a few things that I am going to be using and demonstrating. Don't worry about installing what I have that I'm going to display here and now. I'm going to introduce these in the lessons where we actually need them. I want this to be a place you can come back to if you do run into issues with VS Code, because one of the extensions that I've used to build this application is this new thing at the time of recording called the C# Dev Kit. It is still in pre-release and preview mode, which means it's not perfect, but I found it useful enough to use and include in this training course for developing this application. And what this gives us is some Visual Studio-like functionality. And it gives us C# project and solution management via a solution explorer, native testing, a language service, and AI-assisted development. Don't worry, we're still writing the code ourselves, and you'll see what I mean by this. It can be useful, it can be annoying, this AI-assisted development feature with something they call IntelliCode. However, what I do want to mention is that on occasions, when I was writing the code, sometimes in the project I would open up one of the files, for example, and the using statements would be grayed out, even though they're needed, and I couldn't hover over the classes and get information about what's going on. When that happens and you kind of got yourself in a bit of a freeze situation, then what I would suggest is you use the show all commands, and inside here we've got a developer reload window command. Please use this as the first troubleshooting thing that you do inside VS Code. This does solve 99% of the problems that you might face. However, in this C# Dev Kit, this is a special case, and sometimes even that would not solve the problem. And I found myself using this button and switching between the release and pre-release versions, again to try and resolve that problem. And I would take that action, it would go ahead and reinstall the C# Dev Kit, and then I would try and reload the window after that. Again, this might have to happen 2 or 3 times for me to get Visual Studio Code back up to where it was before. This can be annoying. I do not have a secret magic button that I can press to get VS Code back up and running. It is a question of a bit of patience, a bit of reloading the window, a bit of switching between versions, and I would find that it would be back up and running and operating as it's supposed to using that method. Also inside VS Code, if we open up the terminal and take a look at the integrated terminal, then on here as well we have an output window where we can get further assistance and information with what is going on with particularly C#. This was the one I had most issues with. And I don't want to say that I had lots of issues all the time. It was every now and again. Typically after leaving my computer alone for a while, then possibly it would run into issues. But you can get further assistance with what's going on in the output windows with these different services or extensions that you're running on VS Code. So do please take a look at this output window for the logs and see if that can give you more information about whatever problem you are having. But like I say, most problems can be resolved by simply reloading the window. And students in the past have often written a question in the Q&A about VS Code problems they're having, and really the best I can offer is to suggest that you reload the window, reinstall the extension, check the logs, and I don't have a magic button that I press to make it work perfectly on my machine. What you see in this training course has of course been edited, and I don't show you me reloading the window whenever it gets stuck. And I'll just go ahead and do that to fix whatever problem I have. And like I say, you don't have to use VS Code. If you do find it frustrating, then please do use Visual Studio, or please do use Rider as an alternative to this. I just use this to demonstrate because it's free to use and it's the same experience across the different operating systems out there.